WNST.net. The drafting of Adley Rutschman is now in the books, and we're going to be monitoring that. You can hear all of our insights in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault in regard to Adley Rutschman, having on Rob Nyer, as well as Dan Sagal, and anything else. You'll hear it here at AM 1570. But, Luke, I want to transition this from baseball to football in a little way, and it was not lost on me on Monday night, and probably not lost on you. I don't know that you're as critical of the whole thing as I am, and I'm sure you'll take some side of this, but I could go on and on about my own thoughts in my head, and I didn't want to be mean on Twitter or get into it too much, but when you consider this empty ballpark that you sit in, 5-6 nights a week when the team is home, and how it's empty and how other ballparks are empty and where baseball is. I was up in New York over the weekend, and they had ads all over town for Yankees-Red Sox tickets, right? Because the Red Sox were in town, and I didn't even realize they were in town until, Saturday night, and I looked into a bar, and they were playing each other, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm in New York. They still play here, and there's a heavyweight fight here, and all this stuff that's going on. But baseball and the draft and what the NFL draft has become in Nashville, what we saw in Philadelphia last year, Chicago, New York, all that stuff, and this baseball draft that is done in a library with a bunch of nerds. There's no sound. There's no fanfare. There's no noise. There's no booing of Rob Manfred. There's no much of anything. I tell you what, man, just from a presentation standpoint, you wonder what's wrong with baseball. Just put the draft on Monday night. The draft is an afterthought from a fan base standpoint, from a pomp and circumstance. And I know that's never going to be the NFL draft, but boy, there's the NFL draft and the NBA draft. The NHL's trying a little bit more with its Vegas thing and all that. And then there's what baseball did on Monday night, which is, from an American marketing standpoint in the modern era, being a modern sports league, it was just poor. I don't know what else to say. I mean, almost laughable. Luke, I don't want to be too mean, but they could have just brought in a blackboard and old ashtrays like they did back in the old days in the 70s in the NFL. It was that bizarre to me to see this is the best you can do with your draft, huh? Really?
What do you want it to be? Look, could they improve it? Sure. We don't know who any of these players are. People don't watch college baseball in this country. It's just the truth. The NFL draft wouldn't be what it is if not for the popularity of college football. It's just the truth. If the NFL said tomorrow that they were going to start draft, that the complete system was going to be revamped and they were going to draft high school kids, no one would care.
By the way, the NBA draft was a lot better
about it because anything that has the shield on it, people consume, even if it's a god-awful product. But
I want to say this. The NBA draft was way better when it was all American college basketball players and they all played 4 years because, you knew who they were. You know what I mean? You were following their lives. The minute the European and the South American, then it becomes I don't know who that is, or how do I compare some guy from Greece to a guy I've watched play for 10 minutes at Duke? You know what I mean? And these baseball guys, nobody's seen them play. I would agree with that. But just from the way that they present their product, it is poor, bro. I don't know what else to say. But
I guess my question is, what's so poor about it? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's
I turned it off 30 minutes in. I watched till the Padres picked.
Okay, you turned it off after the Orioles made their pick. I
wouldn't have turned it on if the Orioles didn't lose 115 games last year. If the Orioles had picked 18th this year, like they have in many other, I wouldn't watch it at all. But, the fact that I did put it on and I did give it my time, I could not help but notice that it looks like something off of cable access TV. It's really a bizarre, it looks like C-SPAN. But worse. That is how and you wonder what's wrong with Major League Baseball. You better figure out a way to make it more interesting. That's all I'm saying,
I think the draft is 100 on the list of 150 things that baseball should be worried about doing. I just don't think it's that important relative to a lot of other issues.
It's something the NFL has turned into something, and baseball, it looks like they're not trying. You know what I mean?
I just think this is something that I think it's silly to compare the NFL draft that is something. First of all, the NFL compared to anything.
How can I not compare it? You sound like Harbaugh now. I don't like comparisons. I can't help but compare it.
It's like comparing Division I football to junior high. I mean, like, I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with you.
By the way, it was interesting too when the second or third kid, the high school kid, came up the shortstop. So I guess it was the third or fourth, whatever. Well, Witt's a high school guy. So watching the high school players and seeing them look like little 16-year-old gazelles, you know what I mean? Like, they look like children, and when you watch the speed with which they play the game and all of that, and watching Major League Baseball every night, I got a little Buckism for you. He's a Major League ball player. You know what I mean? It's very, very obvious how far a 17-year-old kid is from looking like J.J. Hardy did. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
no doubt.
just the speed of it, all of it. And so, yeah, you really do get a vibe for how hard this is to project. In the same way when you're seeing some grainy footage from some kid from Morgan State getting drafted in the 6th round, trying to compare that kid to an Alabama kid, right? Literally.
Yeah. But to go back to your point, I mean, look, believe me, I'm not saying they can't make it better. I mean, and I believe Rob Manfred, when they had him on the set, mentioned something about maybe trying to incorporate this with the College World Series itself. Maybe you have it on site of the College World Series and turn it into a baseball celebration as much as just...
Maybe you stop baseball, have everybody in their home ballpark, open the ballpark up, have all your current players there to take pictures and high-five and sign autographs. Make it the fan thing you do in June where kids... Make it your summer festival. Shut everything... like there's got to be something you can do. Lord knows the All-Star Game kind of stinks, Luke. I mean, I went to it last year in Washington, even in the place it is.
It's the best All-Star Game of the 4 sports.
Okay.
I mean, I don't. Okay. I mean, I think to me this just turns into let's just pile on baseball and everything to do.
No,
baseball.
I'm not piling on. I'm saying they have a broken thing right now. Even though they're all printing money, their thing's broken, man. I mean, it's broken.
That's your opinion. I think it needs to be. I think it needs to. There needs to be things that are revamped, but
it's specifically broken here, right, from a Baltimore perspective right now. But I'm trying to say that where can they grow their game in this country with a fan base? And the NFL has managed to take this draft thing and make it something.
Because everyone watches college football, Nestor. No one watches. I mean, if people watch college baseball to the degree that they watch college football, it would be a way bigger deal. Like, I mean, it's just the truth. I mean, you're talking about the NHL draft in Vegas. Come on, man. No, the NHL draft, really? No one watches that. I mean, I guarantee you.
Well, hockey people watch it in the same way baseball people watch the baseball draft. So when I'm watching the baseball draft, all I can look at it and say is, how could they make this better? How could they? That's just the way I look at life, bro. So,
Sure.
I'm looking at it and seeing what the NFL did with its, and seeing that the baseball one still looks like 1967 and feels like 1967. And if the excuse is, well, no one watches college baseball and they never will, so we're not going to worry about this. Well, we just won't make it better. I can't help as a fan putting it on and saying, man, like, I thought it would be a little bit more than this, but it is what it's over now, and they just don't see it as a revenue generator. And someone in the NFL figured out, including Mel Kiper, including me in 1996, that fans would care about whether we're drafting John Ogden or Lawrence Phillips and catch on to that because it wasn't a big deal anywhere in 1996.
Sure.
Now, all of a sudden, 500,000 people fly to Nashville, drink beer, boo the commissioner, and they make $1 trillion off of it. Baseball hides it on a Monday night, and that's the way they present it. And I think comparing one to the other is what any fan who had it on, who isn't jaded and hates football and only likes baseball, but if you watch them both, it's very obvious that the people running the NFL have figured out how to make money on it, and the people running baseball feel like you feel like nobody knows, nobody cares. Let's worry about something else.
Well, I mean, I just think if it's a bunch of anonymous names, I mean, how much excitement is there?
This is your chance to make them not anonymous.
To me, the comparison is, what does the 6th and 7th round of the NFL draft? What's the juice for that? And look, could you move the MLB draft and have it? At different locations, sure, I guess. I think your idea as far as opening up your ballpark and basically turning it into an in-season fan fest, yeah, sure.
That would make your draft bigger. It would make it a bigger deal in every city for every team.
But the TV piece of it, I'm not sure what you really expect it to be beyond that. you can't have the players on site because a lot of these kids are playing in the NCAA regionals.
Just the fact that they do it in the middle of the season. I mean, the reason the NFL is a big deal.
4th of July weekend after, somewhere around there, let's say, after the College World Series has concluded. I mean, believe me, Nestor, I'll hear ways to make it better, but I just think it's laughable to compare it to the NFL draft because one reason why the NFL draft is so popular is that college football is so popular. We know
one of the reasons the NFL draft is popular is the NFL's popular.
Well, I'm not disputing that. I just think comparing it to the NFL, the NFL is king in that way. Just like the NBA draft isn't nearly as good as what the NFL draft is, and the NHL draft is a joke, just like the MLB draft is a joke. But a lot of that is people watch college football and college basketball.
Why wouldn't they be having the draft in front of Fenway Park or in Cooperstown or in front of baseball things or in front of baseball monuments and having fans and having Hall of Famers show up there and having all the number one picks show up and sign autographs and take pictures and throw the baseball around and have kids run the base? I mean, again, dude, you sit in a frigging empty ballpark all summer, somebody around there, and I sit and watch baseball and every ballpark's empty, and then I put on their draft, which the other sports have figured out a way to make into something, and I'm telling you, man, it was all I could do to just not make fun of it, but nobody's watching it anyway, so my jokes are going to be lost. But I really thought like they should just get a blackboard out, literally.
I mean, okay. I mean,
Okay. Enough. Joe McCoy, we lost him too.
Really, it's just really not anything that I'm up in arms. Like I said, there are 100 other things.
I'm comparing why baseball is losing its market share to football and why baseball is shrinking. So I'm in a summer where we're not even talking about baseball 7 days a week because it's shrunk so friggin' badly in our market that. So at some point, when we have the number one pick and we lose 115 games and it's the one day a year you sort of fly into it, all I'm doing is evaluating it, bro. I'm watching it and saying, if I ran it, how would it be better? I think that about the Orioles every day. I think about the camera angle they had in there where it's this awkward sigma. I mean, put a bird logo up, get the glare off the Ripken jersey so it looks like a Cal Ripken jersey in an 8 and not a Bill Ripken jersey in a 3. I just looked at the presentation of all of it, and it looked like nobody cared much and they wanted to get it over with. And I'm just commenting on that the NFL people didn't feel that way. The NFL people didn't feel like, let's get it over with. They felt like, let's bring the military in. Let's bring sick kids in. Let's bring Mo in to pick a pick. Let's bring Michael McCrary and Edwin Mulatalo. Let's bring Hall of Famers in. Let's honor Walter Payton. Let's honor everybody. Let's boo the commissioner. Let's make fun of Mel Kiper's hair. Let's make it something.
And that's fair. And I still think the fact that it's in the middle of the season makes it incredibly problematic. And look, if the NFL decided they wanted to suddenly for whatever reason, let's say Roger Goodell had some bizarre, crazy scheme to make the NFL draft between Week 7 and Week 8, I don't think there would be nearly the buzz for it, because part of it is that it's in the middle of the off season and people miss football, and it's something, the timing of it, making it an event. In the same way they make the schedule release a big deal, even though we know what 16 teams the Ravens are going to play at the end of the season. But
dude, I have 100,000 people to follow every word I say. They don't even let me in, and they have an empty ballpark. So, I don't, from their point of view of who thinks what, or how many people you can get out for any of the, or how you can make money on all of this. Making money is about making people care. You know what I mean? It's grabbing your attention. Every Oriole fan in the universe was glued in on this. Every nerd that follows any of the Camden, the Adley, everybody was watching it for one night who was an Orioles fan, and I watched it for the first time, and I thought to myself, why aren't the Orioles making a bigger deal of this? They brought Mike Elias on, bro, and the audio went down. You know what I mean? It looked like something. The Dundalk High would be, my radio station was better in 1985. At least we got him on the air. I just thought this was a chance for the Orioles, for the league, for the Shine, to have John Angelo, to have the man, to have the organization and the city and the franchise be really excited about Adley Rutschman. I'm sort of excited about it. I feel kind of silly about it. I want to call around and learn about him and all this stuff, and yet I don't know that most people with an Oriole hat on know how to spell his name yet. You know what I mean?
Well, people never learned how to spell Weeders either, so.
Or Ripken. I still see
Ripken,
R-I-P-K-I-N.
R-I-P-K-I-N, right?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
but I think the other factor that we haven't mentioned here, it's not just that people don't know who these players are, but the reality is, at best, we're going to see Adley Rutschman end of next season, and it's probably going to be later than that because they're probably going to try to manipulate his service time a little bit more. I mean, the Cardinals drafted Kyler Murray 1-1. And he's going to start week 1 for them, barring something strange.
By the way, try to explain that to your 8-year-old kid. Why are they not bringing Adley Rutschman up, Daddy? Well, they don't want to activate his service time. The things you have to learn about when you start hearing about. I'm just thinking of Don Moeller's grandkids, and they now know who Adley Rutschman is, and they'll be watching the box scores in Del Mar or wherever he's going to be, right? And this was like me when I was a kid with Bob Bonner, right? And Jim Fuller and Drungo Hayeswood. That part of the tradition of baseball is having young players that are going to be the next Messiah. That's part of the fun of this. I think it's the only fun when you're going to lose 100 games, Luke,
Sure. I mean, I hear you. And I want to be very clear. I'm not disagreeing with you that they can't improve this thing, but I think there are very much some real limitations at work here on turning this thing into anything that's going to be more than some incremental improvements. And that's not to say that incremental improvements don't have value, but I just think it's really, really difficult to get the average fan who doesn't watch any college baseball. I mean, again, go down ask even a good, solid Orioles or Major League Baseball fan how many college baseball players they can name in a given year, and they're going to have fingers left over on one hand. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, so I think they're limited in what they can do in that regard. But yeah, could they? I really liked the idea of even just moving it to the site of the College World Series and kind of creating a little more of a partnership there. And you have players that would be on site then. I mean, I know the Orioles, the third-round pick that they made on Monday night was actually playing in an NCAA game, Kyle Stowers from Stanford. So, he was in the midst of a game when he was drafted. I mean, that's kind of cool, but think about if you had the draft on site once they actually get to the College World Series and the teams that are participating, you could have those guys on stage. Yeah, I mean, there are things you can do, but again, from strictly speaking, from a television event standpoint, I think it's going to be very, very challenging to get people to watch something when they don't know who any of the players are. And you can try to put as many old players on there as you can, and it's still not going to be even something that lives up to, say, the Hall of Fame induction. I mean, so yeah, there are things they can do better. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I mean,
it really did look like they're not trying all that hard.
I just think the NFL draft is such a different animal than anything else, and part of it is how humongous college football is in this country, that it kind of just, the beast feeds itself, so to speak, there. But yeah, there are things they could do, but I still think it's going to be much more on the incremental scale. And of all the things that if I were Major League Baseball that I want to address, the draft would be pretty far down on the list of priorities, in my humble opinion.
He is Luke Jones. He's Baltimore Luke, and we're fighting. We always fight about the NFL and Major League Baseball and marketing and all that. All of our WNST coverage, we have so many new sponsors, and I want to shout them all out, but then we have like the venerable legends like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and the Sizzling Steaks in Pikesville and downtown, and in Odenton and in Annapolis, and Steve DeCastro has been supporting all of our leukemia lymphoma battles, and of course, there goes my hero, and we're going to be out celebrating with Ruth's Chris. My wife's birthday was last week. We're celebrating all month long. We're going to go get ourselves a steak here this week, and they're available for all your private catering, but don't forget this now. They have a special $39.95. Also, the happy hour at both bars, phenomenal. My wife and I always take part in the happy hour before we go over to Pier 5 when we're downtown. So come on down, say hello, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive is alive and well, and downtown is alive and well, and Ruth's Chris is one of our favorite parts of living downtown. So there you go. Also, got to tell you about our friends at the Model Lyric, another one of our favorite parts of Baltimore positive and being around here. We're going to be down there on Sunday night with Bill Maher, one of my all-time favorites. JoJo Siwa also here next week. And the Marvin Gaye musical. I don't know which show I'm going to. There's multiple shows next weekend. But it is a Marvin Gaye musical called Pride and Joy. It's at the Model Lyric next weekend. Get down there for that. And my wife said to me, have you ever seen Diana Ross? And I'm like, no, I've never seen Diana Ross. June 30th, Diana Ross. That's pretty supreme. That's at the Model Lyric. There's always magic at the Model Lyric. Make sure you're checking them out. Also, shout out to Lee Tessier, my dear friend. Selling my condo can be selling your home or putting you into a new home. You got to have a realtor, man. You got to have a realtor that knows all the rules, all the regulations, all the laws. Lee Tessier, my guy, leetessier.com to learn more there. And, of course, our friends at Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast, the tasty coffee, the Kona blend in the cup. And make sure you're using the ROFO Rewards card. You can get the app on your phone. It's very, very easy. You pump your gas, you get your points, you get your Western fries and your fried chicken free of charge. It is Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. I got that next to my Pizza John's cup here, too. Back River Neck Road. I got to get down there and get some pepperoni this week. I've been getting a little more fancy with my pie. You know, I've been mixing things up because I always get the thing that I get. Sausage, green pepper, pepperoni, and mushroom. No meat sauce, even though Luke likes the meat sauce. Pizza John's, Essex. Find out what all the hubbub's about. If you're from the east side, everybody's eating at Pizza John's. If you're not from the east side and you get to the east side, you say, what's so good about Essex? Pizza John's and Icy Delights and Al Seafood and Patrick's and all of our other sponsors as well. Appreciate them all. We got a lot of new sponsors. Please support them. They support us. Luke Jones here, and, I want to get to football with you for a minute because we didn't do a whole segment on this because the guy's not coming here, but when the owner of the team is talking about courting McCoy and this whole grudge that he has now with Tampa Bay, and I happened to watch the Hard Knocks a couple years ago with him and Smitty, this is an interesting turn of events, right? Like, this seemed to be the guy that would pick the Ravens, right?
Yeah, and I think, first of all, the Ravens, given their cap position, and that's not to say that they couldn't afford Gerald McCoy, but with him being on a one-year deal, and it came out to about an $8 million cap number, when you throw in the incentives that are likely to be earned, which when they're likely to be earned, you throw into the cap, it was going to be difficult for them to fit him and not be forced to make some other moves, whether it's another restructure, whether it's cutting a couple role players. I mean, they could have made it work, and they were trying to make it work. And to your point, Steve Bisciotti was, he labeled Gerald McCoy a game wrecker. John Harbaugh said he considered him to be a Raven already, even though he wasn't officially at that point when he came in to visit last week. But I think when you look at the three teams that he was comparing, talking about Cleveland, the Ravens, and Carolina gave him the opportunity to stay in the NFC South, where, let's face it, this guy spent nearly a decade in Tampa Bay and was cut in May. I mean, that's something that's not going to sit well with most players. And they gave away his jersey number to Ndamukong Suh. And I know Bruce Arians has made some comments about how he wasn't going to fit there. So, it's been, there's been some acrimony there. There's some hurt feelings there, I think, with what that departure was, considering what he meant to the Buccaneers. So when you consider Carolina, division rival, get to play his old team twice, Carolina has a former league MVP at quarterback, whereas Cleveland and the Ravens have second-year quarterbacks. And that's not to say anything, take anything away from Mayfield or Lamar Jackson, because they both had some impressive success in their rookie year in different ways, but they're still unknown there. So when you kind of stack that all up, and I know people continue to sell the Ravens having the top-ranked defense from last year, but they also lost 5 players from that top-ranked defense. So from a perception standpoint, even if you want to argue that the Ravens should still have a really good defense, and I'm of that camp, do I think they're going to be number one necessarily, considering some of the questions at pass rusher and losing C.J. Mosley and the other names they lost? No, but I still think they're comfortably somewhere in the top 10 and maybe in the top 5 if they get a couple pass rushers to step forward. But when it comes back to a perception standpoint, did Gerald McCoy view the Ravens more favorably than he did the Carolina Panthers? Apparently not. And I think I'll say this: the fact that he waited until later in the day Monday when there was talk that he could make a decision over the weekend or that he wanted to have a decision made by the end of the weekend. Maybe that leads you to believe that he was hoping another team would jump in and offer him a little bit more money than the offers that he got. So it's a missed opportunity for the Ravens for sure. Do I think it's a deal breaker? No, because, and I would have said this even if they signed Gerald McCoy, in general, I tend to be leery of giving big money to defensive tackles on the wrong side of 30, and I think Haloti Ngata was a great example of that as far as how his last couple years played out with the Ravens.
Yeah, we discussed that at length last week, right?
Yeah, I think Brandon Williams, now where he is at his age and what his cap figures are the next couple years, I think that's problematic. Not that they're a bad player, but does the play match the price tag? And I think with Gerald McCoy, even though it would have been a one-year deal, so I'm not trying to make too much out of what kind of commitment it would have been, but I think it's fair to say that his best football, his prime, is behind him. So just how impactful he's going to be for the Carolina Panthers, or just how impactful he might have been for the Ravens, I think was going to be up in the air a little bit more, but certainly would have been a nice help for their pass rush as far as someone who has averaged, I think, 5 or 6 sacks for the last 6-7 years in a row, something like that. So he would have helped, there's no doubt, but I don't think the Ravens are waking up the day after McCoy spurns them panicking or anything like that. I just think they viewed it as an opportunity to get better, but they'll move on now to the next potential opportunity, or more likely, focus on the internal guys they have as interior rushers. Your Willie Henrys, your Chris Swarmley, guys like that. Pernell McPhee, seeing what he can give them at age 30. So they have some options, but certainly Gerald McCoy would have been nice to add to that mix. There's no question about that.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter, and Luke at WNST.net. We got minicamp next week. Luke and I will be discussing more things Ravens, then some more shout-outs to our incredible group of local sponsors. I haven't talked about Andy over at G&A all week long. The legendary Coney Island Dogs. I almost went to Coney Island, the real Coney Island, and I know they're not going to be better than G&A, so I just go to Highlandtown instead. The Food Network with Guy Fieri came in there. I've had Coach Billick in there. They are always Baltimore positive on Eastern Avenue in Highlandtown. Hit him up for the beef brisket. Make sure you get the French fries with the gravy. And always open for breakfast, in addition to the delicious hot dogs that Andy will make down his sleeve for you and chili dog them all up for you. G&A, Coney Island hot dogs in Highlandtown. I've been eating them since 1979. That's why I look as good as I look. I'm wearing my Strategic Factory shirt, and I didn't even see on my TV webcam that my collar was a mess in this shirt. I have a collared Strategic Factory shirt. Look, there's my logo right there. Strategic Factory. They put the strategy in all things marketing, making cups like this and hats like this and shirts like this. If you need to promote your company, and we all need to promote our brand, Strategic Factory is there for you. Learn more about what they do at strategicfactory.com. Signage, printing, branded material, logo designs, giveaways for trade shows, all of that stuff that you need, but making it smarter and better. It's Strategic Factory doing it locally as well, up in Owings Mills. Sporticulture has promised me not just flowers on the set for my cat to eat, but also lava lamps. We have a lava lamp coming here that we're going to unveil in football season. Court's out there at Sporticulture growing phenomenally beautiful flowers out of Walnut Springs, out on the west side. Glenelg. Near Glenelg, he likes to say. He has an official title out there. Court is a longtime NFL fan, big Ravens fan. Sporticulture does NFL licensed flowers and other promotional products. Find them out at Sporticulture. That's sporticulture.com. I've been drinking out of my Cole Roofing mug and haven't given Billy Cole a shout out, but he's going to do some therapy on Wednesday morning, so I'm looking forward to that. Cole Roofing, Gordian Energy, doing solar and all that good stuff, and keeping me in coffee cups so I have my Royal Farms coffee in the cup. Luke and I are going to be covering sports all weekend long out at WNST.net. I'm at Fadley's on Thursday with Donald Fry from the Greater Baltimore Committee. We're going to be at Fadley's on the 20th of June downtown in Lexington Market with our Mayor Jack Young, joining us to discuss Baltimore. I'm going to talk to him about this boxing thing. I'm in disagreement with this, Mayor Young, but I'm in disagreement with a lot of things. That won't stop him from coming by. We're going to be at Fadley's. Don Moeller, former Baltimore County executive, doing all things Baltimore positive. We're going to talk to Nancy Fadley Devine about She won't give you the recipe for the crab cakes, but we are going to eat the crab cakes and the french fries and the coleslaw, which is delicious, by the way. See you at Lexington Market this Thursday, the 6th, with Don Fry and the Divine Family, as well as on the 20th with Mayor Jack Young. Fadley's, Baltimore Positive. That's what Baltimore Positive is all about. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.